Okay. All right. Have you ever experienced a major flaw in your school safety plan? And if so, what did you do to remedy this problem? If you've not experienced this, why do you believe your safety plan is successful?
A major flaw in our safety plan. Wow. Probably to me, the thing that I feel like we and most schools and districts are playing catch up on is digital media. I recall last year and the year before. Well, it's been a couple years ago. Some anonymous threats on Facebook, and I think we kind of scrambled to really understand how to react to those. And I'm talking about as a district. It's a threat's a threat. Nonetheless, sometimes things on digital media, et cetera, social media, they're unfounded threats. But it's kind of been difficult how to process those, and to what degree do you react to something that's really
Not in the school
unfounded, that's more hearsay than reality. So how do you balance the proper strength of reaction in cases like that? And then again, something that we found in relationship to just safety and how safety is perceived is once something, whether it's factual or not, gets on the social media track, it grows exponentially, and it really takes on a life of its own. And it's hard to manage that, but we found as a district and as a school, the best way to do that is just to communicate as quickly and as thoroughly as you can about the reality of what's been perceived, and almost always there's a difference. And I think we've learned that over the last few years in a couple situations.
Okay, that's something I didn't think about was having to deal with social media.
But I think as far as overall safety plan, I think that our district and our school we're much further ahead than we just were 5 years ago. And unfortunately, things like Sandy Hook emphasize how important it is to have some different things in place. And it led us to secure areas of our building that typically in the past we didn't really feel a need to secure, like loading dock areas and other access points. And we're continuing to take steps to require certain types of procedures before anyone even enters the building. And another step that we're about to take is you'll see an entirely different entrance for us here. During fall break, we're having a different type of entrance, totally different type of entrance put in. And
is that just in the front, or is that
front and the student?
Good, because I have to man those doors. That makes me feel better.
Yeah, instead of full glass, we're going to have a metal base, which is, if somebody wanted to get in, they could kick in that glass. Yeah. I mean, there's just basically a gasket that holds it in, and so you're going to see some even further security measures that we take very soon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Does CHS employ any sort of zero tolerance policy? If so, do you feel it has been effective in curbing school crime? And in your opinion, how does it compare to other forms of discipline in terms of effectiveness?
We do have something that needs to be addressed by that question is there's actually a state zero tolerance statute. And our district and our school, of course, enforces the state zero tolerance statute.
What is that?
There are three things that are considered zero tolerance offenses. That's possession or use of a weapon on school grounds, and a weapon can be anything based on how it's used, but specifically firearms, things like that. So, the use of or the possession of a weapon on school premises is a violation of federal law. The other two things, possession, use, or to be under the influence of, the transmission of, et cetera, a controlled substance. And that can, of course, be a variety of things, from narcotics, marijuana, all the way to prescription medications, just anything that's used, that's a controlled substance is considered a violation of the zero tolerance statute. And then assault of a faculty member. Those are the three things that constitute zero tolerance offenses as specified in the federal zero tolerance statute.
Do you feel like that works? That's more effective than other terms?
I think it does, and the reason I think it does is because what a lot of people probably don't know is that any time a student is suspended for more than 10 days, they and their parents, guardians, have the right to appeal a suspension greater than 10 days. That's their right. They don't have to, but they can. And we always, when we have students that are in that situation, we always recommend and encourage them to appeal.
So that they're not out of school that much.
So that they're not out of school.
I just did a paper on that, and that was the big thing against zero tolerance, was how many days of school they have to miss.
Yes. So, but that's kind of misleading because, still every student in that situation has the opportunity to appeal that term or that suspension. When that happens, the next step is a disciplinary hearing. And, each school district, each LEA has a disciplinary hearing authority. It may look a little bit different from place to place, but usually what a discipline hearing does is the student and parents and whoever else they want to bring, they're there to represent themselves. There's usually a representative from the school there, and then there is, the hearing authority, the disciplinary hearing authority. Usually in our district, it's a single person. It looks different at other places, but similarities as well. Basically, what it is it's really a pretty informal thing. The representative of the school attends, and we provide a narrative of what happened, a narrative of why we're recommending, a long-term suspension. We get to tell that side of the story, the facts about what happened and why we recommend what we've recommended. The student and his family and whoever else whoever else they bring, they have the opportunity to tell their side of the story or ask questions of the school. And but they don't have to do that. They can, but they are not required to.
So if there's an incident where you have a student who brings something that they didn't necessarily know constituted as a weapon, and they get this, they have a chance to get a lesser punishment.
Yeah, okay. And that's the next thing is that what the disciplinary hearing authority does is he listens to both sides of the story, and they can either uphold and this is all spelled out in Tennessee Code Annotated, they can uphold the disciplinary action of the school. they can lessen it or they can increase it. So it's
Excellent.
pretty, but the goal of every disciplinary hearing authority, at least in Putnam County Schools, is to provide an educational option for that student. That's why we have an alternative school.
Okay.
One of the reasons why. And your question is asking me to make a judgment on how effective I think a zero tolerance statute is. I think it's essential. And the reason I think it's essential is because there has to be a perception, a public perception, and a perception among our students that the most dangerous or the most disruptive offenses and the people that commit those things will no longer be in the general student body population. And I think there are things that require, for the sake of the safety and the perception of safety of the school, I think there are certain things that require that type of disciplinary action. Now, the flip side of that is if you have a good alternative education program, in theory, the student is not losing academic ground by being removed from the general school setting, that their needs are being met at a smaller, more confined, more disciplined setting. And, so yes, I think the zero tolerance statute works, but to the degree of the quality of the alternative.
Yeah.
If it's not a real education going on there, then I think it does hurt the student.
That makes sense.
Yep.
As an administrator, have you ever dealt with school facility-related health issues? And what did you do to alleviate this problem, and what was the outcome?
School-related health issues.
In terms of our facility, or if we had the plague here at school one year?
No, fortunately we don't.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. The flu, I remember a few years back we had a very high rate of flu among our staff and among our student body, and we just worked with our cleaning service to take extra precautions about how we clean and how often we clean and stuff like that. Other than that, we've been pretty fortunate.
Okay.
Yeah.
As the current CHS building gets closer to its 20th birthday, what is the biggest issue you face with the facility?
Oh, just general maintenance.
Yeah.
There's part of the infrastructure that we're starting to need to replace. Some of the core systems that we have, like our cooling towers and stuff like that. We are heating, roofing, just ongoing maintenance things that just show themselves when a building starts to age.
How often do you have to deal with that stuff? Like on you personally, like
me personally, usually every time that there's something that's major, it takes some type of decision or approval from me as far as the course of action goes. But you rely on the maintenance supervisor to help make those decisions, and usually with those things, he helped design this building. He was part of he helped review the blueprints. It's like in any leadership position, you trust the people that are around you that specialize in things, and that's kind of the relationship that I have to the operations of the building and the facility needs that we have.
How does commercialism play a role at CHS, and how do you personally feel about commercialism in schools based on your experiences?
Commercialism meaning
sponsors, doctors, advertising.
I think it's essential that we have community partnerships, and especially as the emphasis of what should happen with a quality high school education, it should lead to meaningful post-secondary experiences. And one of the ways to expose students to, post-secondary opportunities is to have relationships with community partners. And, and that's kind of what we do with our doctors program. The reality is education is not funded like it should be.
Yeah.
At the state, local, or federal level, period. And, for a lot of the things that we have to do to keep our school running, we rely on, for example, our district's contract with Coca-Cola. Mm-hmm. People know that we have a contract with Coke, but they don't know what it does for us. It's through Coke and the money that we have because we partner with Coke and they have a contract with us. It's what helps us have copier machines. Mm-hmm. It buys us ink. It buys us, things that are essential instructional items that otherwise we would have to, it would be a burden on the county to pay for. And that's just one example. Other examples are what community partners do to support special programs. Our student organizations, our athletic programs, we rely on their funding because the district only funds to a degree. Yeah. And then outside of that, our programs raise their own funds. So it's a necessary part of it. It also shows that there's a lack of appropriate funding, I believe, because of the degree that we have to rely on it. And that's just the reality that you'll find all across the country.
How often do you communicate with public safety officials regarding school matters, and how important do you think these relationships are? Do you have any advice on building good relationships with public safety officials? Something
unique is, our district has a CERT team. It's an emergency action team. I feel like our district is ahead of the curve when it comes to cooperation between the school system and the public agencies. And also don't forget that a great example of those partnerships is the fact that we have 2 full-time school resource offices mm-hmm. that are here. So to answer your question, how often do we consult? Daily. Mm-hmm. Daily about various things. And also with, the Putnam County Emergency Management Agency. We have a very personal relationship with them. They support several of our clubs. We also have another partnership that our district and school are very proud of, and that's that every junior in the course of a year, any given year, every junior will be certified to administer CPR. And we have 2 examples of how our students have saved the lives of people they love. Mm-hmm. And, so that's another kind of neat partnership that we have with those safety, organizations. And, but I think that answers your question. Routinely, we're our school district and the emergency management and law enforcement and all of those local agencies all have a place at the table in what our district calls the CERT team.
Okay.
And that's, a safety response team basically is what that is. Yeah.
All right. The next questions are personal experience questions, mm-hmm. so we're going to move on from school law and ethics. Sure. How involved are you in, how involved are you in school gossip grapevines, and do you feel it is beneficial or necessary for you as an administrator to be in the know regarding gossip in your school? Why or why not?
Are we talking about among faculty?
Among faculty.
I think it's important to know the perception that people have. And I think the state feels like it's important too, because, part of their plan moving forward with the evaluation model is to include student perception surveys, which I think is interesting, but personally, I want to know about those things only if there's a situation that may be a breach of professionalism that I need to know about, that may be a situation that's putting students at risk. That's when I care and feel like those things have value. The reality of the job, especially in a leadership role, is there will be people that will always be dissatisfied with decisions that are made. And they'll use that opportunity to, in private or sometimes in public, to voice their disagreement. I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is whether or not that information can help me understand if learning is taking place and to what degree it is, and if there are issues that I need to be aware of that could compromise the professionalism of our building and the safety and opportunities of our students.
That's a really good question. I was wondering how you'd answer that one. That's a great answer.
Thanks.
Did you have a mentor during your first year as an administrator? If you did, how was the experience helpful or hurtful? If you did not, how did you deal with the inevitable stress of getting through the first year?
I think I did, and it was still Mr. Shanks, probably. We would talk a variety of times, just about, things, and he was always open and available to me. I would also say that at the time, it was Mr. Boyd's first year as well. And, as director, and with some of the things that he and I dealt with, I felt like he took on a mentor role, because as a sounding board, and hey, here's this, what's the next step, that kind of thing. And also just we have middle school and high school principals, PLCs, that we have monthly. And, in that group, we often share what's going on and just kind of have a team mentality. And so there has never been a shortage of people to bounce ideas off of. And so it's been having mentors. Every administrator needs to have not one but several, and people they can trust, people that they want to model their leadership style after, because you'll develop a style whether or not you even know you are. As you make a series of decisions, you'll find out what your own beliefs are and what your own values are, without setting out to, prescriptively to be a certain way. As you make decisions and experience things, you will develop your own leadership style. But it's important that you have, people that you can kind of look to, and sometimes the best mentorship is to learn what not to do. And you can maybe see things that you would change, or see a mistake that was made, not by you but someone else, and that can be a good teachable tool. Yeah.
All right. Did you feel welcomed by the CHS community your first year as an administrator? Why not?
I did, because I feel like I've always been one of us. I graduated from here in '89. I did my student teaching here. I taught in the classroom for a year before I'd been in the profession for 10 years, but had been in a couple different, schools. Got a chance to move here. Moved here, was in the classroom for a year, and then moved into an assistant principal's role. So I think that for most of the faculty, I had earned their trust, and they knew that I worked hard. And I think they knew that I cared about kids, and I think they knew that I tried to be fair in judgment, but tried to be firm, when I needed to be firm. So I felt welcomed, but it was also, it was challenging for some relationships because I'd been friends, for 25 years with some of the people. I was now leading a building in which there were teachers, and still are to this day, teachers that taught me, teachers that coached me, and even some that babysat me when I was a little kid, so it was it was different taking on that leadership role. But I felt like overall I was welcomed. You shoot for an 80-85% approval, and that's rolling right along if you do. But it is the reality that there will be some people that choose not to appreciate what you always do.
For whatever reason.
For whatever reason.
We're almost done. If applicable, what did you do your first years as an administrator to fit in and gain the trust of teachers, parents, and students in the school?
Tried to be as visible as I could. Tried to be in and out of classrooms as often as possible. Something I try to do every year is the first few weeks of school, I try to get into every new teacher's classroom and leave them a note. And get into as many classrooms as I can, just in general, and leave, personal note. And something that I try to do is just be who I am. And I feel like in general, I'm optimistic, and I'm positive, and just try to make sure that those characteristics come out as often as possible.
Have you ever had to handle disagreements between two groups of teachers? If so, what communication techniques did you use to handle the situation?
Absolutely. It's one of the things that I think administrators aren't prepared for is how to manage conflict. And I'm not sure that there's a way to be prepared for it because every situation is different. The personalities involved with every conflict are very different. But there are a few things that I would consider anchor points when you're trying to resolve a conflict, and that's to genuinely listen. And looking back over those things, it's so true that you should talk less than you hear, and always be open to always be looking for a next step. For example, once you understand what the conflict is, be willing to take a step toward resolution. Always look for, a common ground. And conflict involving education, the barometer should always be what's best for the kids. That should always be the barometer. If what decision can we make in this conflict that will improve the situation for the kids? And a lot of times as adults, we want a situation that's better for us. And that makes our jobs more palatable. At the end of the day, that's really not the most important thing. And, a lot of times the two go hand in hand. If it's better for the teacher, it's better for the student. And in that case, it's simple to move forward. But it's not always like that. And, but that would be, my advice is to listen, to genuinely listen, and to be honest about what power you have as an administrator to act or to change, because people don't want to come to you with the perception that something big's going to change if you don't have the resources and even the authority to do it, because sometimes you won't.
Yeah.
And I actually had one of those conversations about an hour ago.
Right.
So that happens.
That was a pretty textbook answer, because we just talked about finding common ground and then doing what's best for the student.
Yeah.
Do you have a set of allies at CHS that you refer to for support, and what made you choose these individuals as allies?
The people I work most directly with is our administrative team. Every week we have an administrator in our faculty. We tell them this, but whether or not they realize it, I don't know. But we meet every week. We share an agenda. We talk about victory, wins for the past week and challenges for the upcoming week. We look at our calendar. We lay the big things out there. We try to update each other on our own areas, specialized areas, and job as per our job descriptions. The administrative team, we've got one that collaborates really well together and supports each other. But then you think about other leadership structures within our building. We have department chairs. We have, club sponsors. We have coaches. That type of support comes in a lot of different forms, in various ways, various times. But kind of to abbreviate that, as a leader, when you have someone that you trust is the big thing. Someone that can be confidential, someone that will be discreet, someone that will be wise when you share information with them that could potentially affect other people. Someone that just has the character traits that make them trustworthy. And it may be, I'm telling you, that it may be people on your administrative team. It may be just a general, teacher. It can be a support staff member. But as a leader, you will be drawn to trustworthy people. You'll be drawn to them. And that's who you will, take important things to, and a lot of that you'll do in confidence. But outside of the building, I feel like that I've got that type of relationship with our director. I feel like I've got it with our assistant director. I feel like I've got it with our, curriculum supervisor. And I guess what I'm saying is this: you'll have those people as a leader. You'll have those people within your building, but you'll also have those people outside of the building within the district that there is almost no, you keep almost nothing hidden from them.
Because you wouldn't be able to.
Because eventually it's going to get
back
there.
To him anyway, yeah.
So that's I think the most important thing is that regardless of who they are, you'll notice that there's something they all have in common, and that's that they've earned your trust. Yeah.
Speaking of which, how often do you seek advice from your supervisor?
Weekly, if not daily.
Okay.
I'm interacting with one or more supervisors on a daily basis, sometimes hourly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I try, I've noticed as I've gotten more experience as a administrator, one of the things that I try to do daily, I keep an empty inbox. You won't find, at the end of the day, you'll find my inbox empty. There won't be anything left.
You're constantly checking his emails.
Yeah. Well, sorting, prioritizing, responding, and that's one of the ways that something that I've labored over is being accessible. I want to be accessible. For example, the fact that this is happening today, did it shock you?
Yes, it did.
Okay, well, and that's one of the things that I try to do. I try to make things happen as immediately as possible. Some things it takes a while to develop, and there'll be pieces of the puzzle that you've got to put together before a quality response is possible. But one of the things that I've noticed about my leadership style is I try to react, and I try to react as quickly as possible, and without rushing.
That's a good way to be though, and so it doesn't pile up and you don't forget about it.
And there are times when certain things fall through the cracks, but usually those things aren't substantial, school changing things.
Do you employ any sort of routine to manage your heavy workload? And you just kind of addressed that.
It's the thing that I struggle with the most. Is the personal side of being a leader. The part that you're able to, but I feel like I've gotten better at this my first couple of years, and even as an assistant principal, I really struggled leaving it here. And there would be heavy things, tough decisions, conflicts, to resolve, issues, to try to manage, that were very difficult just to leave at work. I've tried to get better with that. And, it's kind of ironic because one of the things I work the hardest to do, and that's to stay current in responses and, stuff like that. One of the things that I think is a strength of mine is also a negative, because I'll have trouble disengaging.
Keep going and going and going.
And it wears you out, affects the way you are at home if you don't, if you're always tired, or your mind's elsewhere. It takes something, personally, the strategy, my faith is what sustains me. And, that's probably how I manage the demands of the job is I try to purposely put the tough stuff on shoulders that are bigger than mine, and also try to remind myself that I feel like what I do is my mission. It's not a foreign land, it's not a foreign country, but I feel like that, me being who I am, interacting with students, interacting with faculty, and trying to be who I am, that's my mission field. And that, that's how to answer your question, that's how I manage the demands. I remind myself that there's a purpose that I'm here. And it didn't happen by chance. And that's what keeps me coming back. We've got kids that need adults, caring adults. They're everywhere. They're in this school, they're in every school, and so many of them just don't have an adult that cares. And even if you can smile and say hi to a kid, it
means a lot.
It means a lot. Yeah.
Last one.
Okay.
Looking back on your career in administration, what is one piece of advice you wish you'd been given before accepting your position?
let's see. One piece of advice. Schedule the important things, the most important things, schedule them and stick to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't allow those things to be interrupted unless it's, you know, disastrous or urgent, you know, because there are plenty of things that if you want to do something important, there are plenty of things that will interrupt it. And, you know, what I've learned is that the important things you schedule and you set aside time for, unless it's dying, it can wait.
Mm-hmm.
And make those things happen. That would be probably the biggest, you know, if it's important, schedule it and stick to it.
Okay.
Make those things happen.
So prioritize.
Prioritize. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
All
so
right.
much.